everyone. Thank you for being here. At the beginning of this, I would like to say this session is being recorded. Laura, we can see your Facebook now. Yeah. Yes, so welcome at the Youth Mental Health on the Spot conference from the Mental Health Working Group of AEGEE-Europe. To show you all everything in perspective, today we're gonna speak with 8 speakers from with self-experience with mental health. Tomorrow we will speak with 6 youth associations involved with mental health. On the third day we will talk with 9 professionals, and on the last day we will talk with 5 policymakers on mental health. There are 34 countries already all signed up in the conference, so that's really cool. Can we go to the next slide? Yes, so first of all, we're gonna introduce AEGEE a little bit because our mental health working group is part of AEGEE, and AEGEE is a youth association founded in 1985. AEGEE strives for a democratic society in Europe that is diverse and borderless. AEGEE empowers students and young people in Europe and want them to take an active role in society. And our mental health working group is from AEGEE-Europe, and we organized, among other things, we organized this conference. And our mental health working group, our main focus is that we want to act against mental health stigmatization and promote awareness, and among other projects, so we organized this conference. And for further information about us, oh, well, this is the team. And for further information about us, you can visit our social media pages and our website, or you can send us an email for further collaborations. For the conference, we started a crowdfunding because we are doing this as, well, we are trying to cover our expenses that we made for the conference. So if you would like to make a small donation, we can really appreciate this. And today we're going to talk about breaking the stigma. And we want to give voice to people that have been through mental health problems, raise awareness, and learn to be more inclusive. And today we have an introduction. Well, the program is that we have from until 3:30, we have the introduction. Then at 3:30, we start with the panel discussion. At 6, we have our workshop. And at 7:30, we start with our reflection groups. And today our introduction is given by Ramón. He is a Spanish psychologist that works with different ranges of people and young people among them. And I would like to give the floor to Ramón right now for the introduction. So you can turn on your camera, Ramón, and I will close mine.
Hello, good afternoon. Unless there's any sort of trouble or any objection from the organization, I am absolutely in favor of you opening up your webcams so I can see the people who I am talking to, because it's for the speaker is much more nice. So unless there's some sort of technical problem or limitation, I would love to see your faces. Come on, come on. I've spent 1 year teaching online and I'm sick of this shit. Can I use profanity? Because I use profanity a lot. I don't know if Laura told you about this, but I swear like a sailor. Is that allowed? May I? I can be polite if I need to, okay, please, but I don't know if it's okay. Okay. Also, I think I fucked up because I have another live transmission at 4:30, so I may have to leave a bit earlier. I don't know if because I am a mess. Okay, which is fairly appropriate because we are discussing mental health. So I invite everyone to open up your webcams. You are also beautiful. I love you. Okay, let's talk about Irem. That's the spirit. Let's talk about how fucked up you are, how fucked up we are, and we are going to discuss briefly stigmas. Um, as it happens, I am a psychologist. I have been working for. Oh yes, that's very interesting. Yes, please, if you open your webcams, please be advised that we are recording the session in case you have any problem. I am just making this request as completely optional. Okay, I understand if you don't want to, but it's much easier for me to not speak to a black screen. Okay, because I hate seeing myself. I'm going to turn myself out. Right away. Okay, much better. I don't have to see my ugly face, so it's okay. So we are going to discuss stigma, and I will discuss it from the perspective of a psychologist who has been working in mental health for the last 20 years. I got my degree in psychology in 2001, okay, which makes me far older than most of you. And I started working as a cognitive behavioral therapist in my hometown in Granada, in the south of Spain. And I have also worked in human resources extensively for 15 years, while at the same time I kept working in psychotherapy. And on the last 10 years, I also started with science communication because I am passionate about talking about psychology and presenting psychology as the fantastic science that it is, and teaching at some universities here in Barcelona, where I currently live. When we discuss mental health, one of the first things I would like to tell you is that mental health may not be the most accurate term, because when we say mental health, we are treating psychological problems as illness, as sickness. That's not a definition that many psychologists will agree upon, because for many mental problems, many psychological problems, I prefer to use psychological problem, if you will, or behavioral problems, there's no physiological cause as far as we know at this moment. There are hypotheses, for example, linking the depression with some deficit, some alteration in neurotransmitters like serotonin, but that has shit evidence, to say the least, which is there's no conclusive evidence after all. Now they're saying that maybe a genetic explanation. Next week we will have a different biological explanation that also will be a piece of shit. And I want you to treat psychological problems as an attempt to adapt to your environment. When you are anxious, when you are depressed, when you have a disorder regarding, for example, feeding, bulimia or anorexia or some shit like that, what you are trying to do is to adapt to the demands of the environment using the resources you have as best as you can. And you have to understand that many times the reason for your psychological problems are not inside you. They are in the interaction that you are having with your environment. It's coping mechanisms, exactly. It's about coping mechanisms. Now, what does this mean regarding youth, regarding students, and what is my experience and what information do I have about the situation on young people and mental health? Well, the numbers are looking bad, but the numbers are looking bad for young people because the numbers are looking bad for everyone. Okay, there's a acute increase in prescription of psychodrugs, antidepressants, drugs for anxiety. There's an increase in the number of diagnoses regarding feeling disorders, lots of increases in suicidal tendencies, self-reported. And all of this comes from a long-term, from way back, because of the changes we are experiencing as a society. So when you talk about mental health, be advised, we are talking about social health. Social health. What does this mean more acutely. I was invited to this conference because this conference is about students and their mental health. Am I right? Of course, you're welcome to participate at any moment, to ask any question, to interrupt me freely. And I don't want to be the only person talking here. Okay. Students face a number of significant challenges that may impact how they cope and how they feel regarding themselves and regarding their own psychological problems. For example, what would you say is right now your main source of stress? What would you say is your main source for most of you? Okay, each one. What would you say is your most important source of stress? What stresses you more right now? What do you think? I want to hear your thoughts.
For me, it would be college, I think.
College. Okay, why is that, Paula?
Well, I'm studying 2 degrees at the same time,
Okay.
and the organization right now it's been terrible, and I actually have no time for
Ah.
doing everything that they're ordering me to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, okay. Some other people are participating. For example, the job market, which is also extremely shitty. The pandemic, of course, the current economic situation in the world, being all the time working from home. Preach it. That's fucking up everyone. Existential problems as what to do after student life, trying to maintain a work-life balance and have healthy personal relationships too, especially when you can't even see each other face to face. Climate change, if you like to think about how you are going to be fucked up in the long term. Money, I'm scared I can work enough and be happy at the same time. Happiness is not having to work. Lack of perspective, existential struggle. Okay, we can see some overlapping responsibilities. We have some beautiful answers here. Let's try to piece them one at a time. The most important thing you have to understand that has impacted your mental health is the loss of incentives, the loss of reinforcements. What do I mean by this? According to behavioral psychologists, many problems related to anxiety and depression are caused by changes in the environment that makes you lose access to things that were good for you, things that made you happy. We call this reinforcement, okay? So think about this. Most of you start college. Some of you start 2 degrees at the same time, like Paula, because you are insane. And then you lose a lot of time you had previously for fun, for recreation, for enjoyment. And then you have this bunch of obligations. You have this bunch of obligations also with no certainty they are going to pay off. Compared to the previous generation, being a college student has ceased to be a guarantee of anything anymore. When I started going to college, right in the 90s, having a college degree was not a full certainty of having a good job, but I could say it really increased your chances. Okay, so having a degree was, generally speaking, a good strategy. Now we are in a more global market, so you have competition from more people around the world. Having a degree maybe not enough. Now you need also a master's degree. It's not enough with only a degree. You have now a master's degree, which you are going to pay probably by selling a kidney. Also, you lose access to social gratification. For young people, social relationships are extremely important, much more than for grown-ups, because grown-ups, we have children, so we stop having a social life when we have children, we have boring jobs, and our life basically goes to shit, but you're still young, so you want to see your friends, but you can't see your friends as much as you used to because you have now these boring responsibilities, these terrible responsibilities in college. You have to compete, and also you compete in other aspects of your life. There's something significant that I have noticed that is missing when I ask you about the most stressful events on your life. Why didn't anyone mention, for example, social media? Social media is proving to be quite hazardous when it comes to mental health. Obviously, it has many advantages and allows us to be here together at the same time and allows you to meet people and to connect with them. But social media also has proven and is currently proving to be quite stressful, particularly by means of social comparison. You are constantly exposed to an overload of information on how much many other persons are having better lives than you do, because you are constantly exposed to a torrent of people showing you a curated, a manipulated, a filtered, like Instagram pictures, aspect of their life, and you are constantly comparing yourself with them. And you only see a part of that. You see the perfect selfie. You don't see the 20 attempts to take the perfect selfie. You see the person with full makeup, all the filters in the world. Sometimes I see some pictures in Instagram and I don't know if it's a boy, a girl, or it could be a transformer or a Tyrannosaurus or something, and you wouldn't know because there's so much filtering and so much manipulation. And you compare with them at all times. Social comparison is especially strong in young people, okay? The younger you are, the more important is to be accepted by your peers. So you have the strange and unprecedented situation of being exposed to an amount of social comparison without precedent in human history. You have never been so exposed to so many people judging you as before. And then you take all of this and you get the uncertainty, and then you get the sad job prospects, and you have the loss of access to fun things that you used to have, and then you get to be constantly comparing yourselves with other people, and then you have a fucking pandemic too, because obviously next thing is the zombie assault or the invasion of dragons. I don't know what comes next. And then we wonder what we can be doing wrong, because young people are so stressed, they are so depressed. I was just talking with a colleague, with a friend of mine who is also a psychologist, and she has a friend, and she told me that she's studying a master's degree, okay, and she's surrounded by younger people, okay. She's the oldest in the classroom. Most people in the masters are young people who just finished the college, and then all of them have been on drugs, on antidepressants, anxiety drugs, or something like that at some moment in the last 2 years. The thing is, what can we do about this? The first thing we have to do is to accept that mental health is social health, meaning that it's not entirely your fault if you feel anxious, if you are depressed, if you are developing some sort of psychological problem. You are trying to cope as best as you can. Maybe the solution you are trying is not good enough for you. That's when you need the help of a psychologist, okay, to find different solutions. But it's not your fault. By talking about mental health, we are talking about illness. And it's something very negative because it takes responsibility from society, from the environment, and puts the responsibility of being of feeling bad on you. One of the most poisonous things I have met in recent times is this plague of positive thinking, okay, that forces you to believe this insane idea of if you want, you can. If you desire it strongly enough, you will get it to it. That's untrue. A huge part on the mental health problems you are showing is caused by unrealistic expectations. So first, realize that having a psychological problem is not an illness, so it shouldn't have this stigma associated traditionally to madness, like something that you have developed because you are a bad person or some sort of divine curse or something like that. Second, look around you, look at your context. What is causing this stress outside of me, and what am I doing to cope with it? Many solutions we do, like for example, watching a whole show on Netflix over the weekend, eating too much, drinking too much, smoking too much, spending too much time surfing social media, are attempts to cope. Pay attention to what you do to cope, because it's likely that there are other activities that are going to be more gratifying, more reinforcing, and will have less negative consequences on the long terms. Third, other people. We need other people. One of the most likely things you will feel like doing when you are anxious or when you are depressed is cutting ties and cutting relationships, trying to be on your own, trying to be alone. Don't reach out for help outside. We need social contact, and social media is not a substitute for social contact. We evolved to read subtle cues when communicating face to face. That's why for me it's so important to see your faces, okay? Because I can see if you're following me, or I can see if you don't give a shit, or I can see if you find me funny, or I can see if you are boring yourselves to tears or whatever. It's distressing not to see you. We have changed from face-to-face communication to a communication based mostly on asynchronous. I don't know if I'm using the right word, okay? I'm sorry, but I just had lunch and I'm absolutely messed up. Asynchronous, text-based, when we miss lots of subtle cues and information we need. Actually, the psychologist Jonathan Haidt postulates that our brain got so massive because we needed it in order to be able to relate to others and to gather as much information as we can from the faces, from the expressions, from the looks, from the sounds we perceive when we are talking to others. So break the stigma, look at your context and what you're doing to deal with the context. Look for other people. Fourth, make sure to safeguard your hobbies, your time to yourselves. Make sure you take this time apart and prioritize time for self-care. Self-care is exercising. Self-care is going out with friends, as much as the current circumstances allow, obviously. Self-care is being alone with your thoughts. Don't be afraid to prioritize that before putting so many things in your calendars that you find that days go by and you haven't had time a single minute for yourselves. Attention is related to anxiety. And there's a bunch of amazing investigation by Clifford Nash from Harvard and by, how is this woman's name? She wrote a book named Wrapped about attention. The more focused your attention is, and the more you engage in activities that require full concentration, the less stress you have. The more distracted you are, the more fragmented your attention is, the higher your base level of anxiety will be. So take time for yourselves. And if all of these fail, and this is not meant to be advertising, look for a psychologist. Okay, look for a cognitive or behavioral psychologist using therapies based on evidence, because unfortunately, the world of psychotherapy is a shit show. It's a jungle in which it's very difficult to make apart who is doing work based on evidence or who is just a smoke seller. Look for a good cognitive or cognitive behavioral psychologist and get help. Don't be ashamed. It's the same as going, for example, looking for a personal trainer. Okay, you are just trying to change how you behave in order to change how you feel. And please be gentle to yourselves. The world is not going to put things easy for you, because the world is not exactly thought for young people. Okay, so don't expect to be okay at all times. It's good and it's natural and it's okay to feel like shit from time to time. Don't beat yourselves up because sometimes you get stressed, or sometimes you feel depressed, or sometimes you have a fucking panic attack or whatever. Actually, given the circumstances in which we live in, it's miraculous not to feel like that from time to time. Okay, as I didn't want to hog much more time, I have tried to be as concise as I could. So I wanted you to have these few ideas on how to, why is that sometimes you feel like that and what you can do about it. But of course, I am open if you have any questions, or if you want to clarify something or whatever, because I think we are on time. Is that correct? Okay, so if I will take any questions you may have. Oh yes, Laura is telling me, please remember people that I will be here on Friday too, so you can hear more swearing. And I will be discussing something which I don't remember at the time because I have so many things to do that I also forget what the fuck I'm doing and where the hell I'm supposed to be right now. But I will be again here on Friday when we will discussing more deeply these kind of issues. So if there's no other questions or any other things you want to clarify, I just wanted to thank you for your patience. Okay, I hope you get from this short speech a much clearer idea of where do psychological problems come from. It's not because you are fucked up. It's not because your brain is broken. It's not because you lack serotonin or some shit like that. It's because the environment in which you live is probably a bit messed up. And I look forward to seeing you again in the next event in which we participate. Thank you so much.
Thank you a lot. Thank you. And yeah, enjoy your next meeting. So that being said, now we're gonna start with the panel discussion. And in this panel, we will talk with experts by experience and family members about their experience with mental health. And after the break, you guys will be also able to send your questions in the chat so that we can ask them. And before this, we will let the speakers introduce themselves. So first, I will give the floor to May.
Thank you. I hope you can all hear me well. So my name is May. I'm Dutch and I live in Amsterdam. I've been struggling with depression, anxiety, PTSD, and an eating disorder ever since I was 13 years old. I've tried a lot of therapies. A lot of therapies have failed me, but I've also found some good ones. And mainly, I've been struggling with feeling really lonely and unheard and misunderstood about what I was going through. So I never really spoke about it until I turned 20. Because I feel like in my environment, it wasn't really allowed to talk about it or to share something. And I felt like no one actually knew what I was talking about. And yeah, now it's been 2 years since I started opening up about my struggles, and I finally have some good therapies that I've tried, and that's working a bit better now. So I'm more positive about my future as well at this point. And in terms of work, I've decided to turn my feelings, so the loneliness and feeling unheard, into something that I want to give to other people. So I want other people to not feel this way, which is why I've set up my own mental health charity in the Netherlands 2 years ago. So I'm helping others who struggle as well by letting them share their stories. We host events and we also give workshops at companies and schools. So yeah, it's one of my healthy coping mechanisms that I've created over time. And yeah, I think that's a bit about me and my struggles so far.
Thank you so much. And right now, for the next one, I will give the floor to Paul.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Paul. I'm also from the Netherlands. I've also struggled with depression. This happened mainly at the end of my high school. I was really unsure about myself, really low self-esteem, and very worried about my future for many of the reasons that Ramón was just also speaking about. And to get some sense of security on that, I tried to set the bar for myself really high. I wanted to go study medicine because I thought, well, that's a high goal and gives a lot of possibilities, but in the Netherlands also has a lot of requirements for you scoring high in high school, getting good grades. So I really set the bar for myself very high, and that's gave me a lot of stress, which eventually I noticed I couldn't really cope with at that moment. And also, like Ramón was saying, for me, that started initiating some bad coping mechanisms to deal with that stress. I started gaming a lot to kind of try to relieve the stress for myself. But that actually just meant extending the time until I started working on my homework, for example, being very tired before I actually started, and then it didn't really help in that sense because it only gave more stress in the end. But I couldn't really go into a different method of coping because I didn't really know how to at that moment. So because I tied so much of my self-esteem to getting to that goal of going to study medicine, when eventually things became even worse and worse for me, and I eventually even dropped out of school, a lot of my self-esteem that was tied to that goal of studying medicine, which I couldn't do anymore because I've dropped out of school, also meant that my whole sense of self-esteem also totally became lost, and I became very depressed at that moment, got admitted to a mental health hospital, and well, things just got worse from there, because there again I can relate to the story of Ramón. In the mental health hospital, everything is focused on you and your mental health, and nothing is focused on this positive reinforcement that he was talking about. I didn't have any sense of positivity about myself, things I was doing that were good, things in my social life that I was experiences that were good. Many of my classmates, for example, many of my friends didn't know what to talk with me or how to talk to me because they weren't familiar with people with mental health problems in mental health hospitals. So I became very isolated. So I had no positive things in my life anymore, which only exacerbated the problems that I was experiencing. So eventually I got out of it, luckily. And just like May, I started to focus my own experiences in a positive way by becoming a peer support worker, using my own negative experiences to help other people not having to go through the same thing as me. And I think the main thing that I wanted to give to people today is that, like Ramón was saying, mental health is not about only problems, it's about adjusting and knowing how to. And I think mental health, I do see it as a thing, as opposed to Ramón. I do see it as something that exists, but not something that is about the problem. I think it's more as a skill or something that we can do and train, just like you can take care of your own physical health by exercising and eating well. I also think that there are ways to take care of your own mental health by learning about it, learning how to speak about it with others, learning the right words. Mental health literacy is a term that they use for that. And in that way that you can take care of your own mental well-being.
Thank you for sharing. And so next I will give the floor to Jana.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jana. I am 26 and I'm from Berlin, Germany. And well, I have struggled with several different psychiatric symptoms in my life, starting at a very early age with quite some anxiety before I could go to sleep. And later on, I developed a skin picking disorder, which means I basically picked my own skin till it bled, and I had wounds, which led to quite a lot of insecurities. And well, it's not a nice disorder to have. But also concerning this disorder, I visited self-help groups, and I also founded one self-help group in Brunswick about 3 years ago. And I think that self-help is a very good thing to do and to reinforce. Yeah, I also had struggled with depression and suicide thoughts. I had several times in my life where the suicide thoughts got so bad that I sought medical attention, or well, I looked for support. First time I was 14 when I got admitted to a part-time stationary support thingy. Excuse my English. And well, then later on, I also had several different psychologists outpatient that I saw, and also over several years. But I didn't find that super helpful, to be honest. It was keeping me to a certain degree stable, but I don't think it healed me in a way or something. So, well, and 2 years ago, I had, for the first time, delusions, which led to me being hospitalized for 2 weeks. That hospital stay was really horrible to me. I hated it, and so I got out of there as soon as I could, against medical advice. I also stopped taking the medication they were saying I should take, and that went well for about 1.5 years. And last year I got delusions again, and also quite heavy mood swings, which were terrible. It was an awful experience, because all the symptoms mixed up, and I got very suicidal as well, because I couldn't bear it anymore. And at that point, my family and me decided to that I should go to a hospital again, which was quite a difficult step for me to take, since the first experience in a psychiatric ward was so awful. But I have had much better experience this time, and I'm very glad for the support I got now in the hospital I went to the second time. And yeah, I think mental health, I don't know, it was always part of my life in a way. I always had to struggle with some sort of symptoms. I was always talking about the whole problematic quite openly. I think I didn't see another way for me to handle it, because I always thought it was easier to let my the other people around me that interacted with me handle it, instead of trying to kind of hide it or hide it. So and I made good experiences with that. I have a lot of good friends, and also my family is quite supportive concerning the whole thing. So I'm very thankful for that. Yeah, I don't know what else to say, but that's for now, I guess.
Thank you so much for sharing. And now I would like to give the floor to Samira.
Hi, I'm Samira. I'm 23. I'm also from the Netherlands, as the first two people. I'm quite nervous, so I'm sorry. I don't usually speak in English, so that's quite nerve-wracking. But I will start with telling you my diagnoses. I mean, the opinions about those are, yeah, are very different, but for the sake of introducing myself in a few minutes, I will tell them. I'm diagnosed with an autism spectrum disorder, avoidant personality disorder, persistent depression, and anorexia binge purge subtype, but in remission, so I'm not currently struggling with that. And next to my own experiences, I also study social work at the University of Applied Sciences in Utrecht, which I enjoy quite a lot. And yeah, so I can put my experience and also the stuff I learned at school together. And I think it's very important to talk about mental health, and that's why I'm very open about my story and my stuff on Instagram. And I think that's how Nelleke found me. So thank you for that. And I'm not sure what to tell now because I thought I would have less time than the other people talks for. But my I'm sorry. So I think my problem started at a very young age because my dad was absent and my mom was addicted to drugs, and I always had the feeling that I was being too much and I was being a bother, so I kept everything to myself and bottled everything up. And so my problems didn't really come out until it got so bad that I tried to kill myself. And from that point on, my eating disorder got worse and kind of everything got worse. And I went into therapy and now I'm luckily doing a lot better. But yeah. I don't really know what to say anymore, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Thank you for sharing. And we can, later on, you can tell something more when the questions are there, if that's okay. Yeah? Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And for the next one, I will give the floor to Nick.
Me?
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to be speaking more later in the week as well. One of our activists, Alejandro, will be speaking in a bit as well. I guess in terms of sharing our lived experience, so I'm Nick. I'm a youth worker from the UK, but I've been specialising in mental health for a long time before I kind of knew my own difficulties. I think my earliest memory of I was always a very passionate young person, should we say, which some teachers often saw as angry or frustrated. As boys, it is well documented how in adolescence boys act out, girls take in, but it's not as black as white as that, of course, across the board. But I was a massive stereotype of that. Passion comes in many good ways as well. My passion drives me a lot with what I do. My earliest experience, though, I think, and it's worth knowing, I was about 22, 23. I'm much older now. I'm curious with Ramon's declaration of being much older than many other people here. But I was 23 and I'm almost 40 now. I was on my way to a school to do some, so 23 or 22? 22, 23. I was on my way to a school to do some work with some young people I was working with, and on emotional well-being, those kind of early intervention conversations that teachers had recognized young people that were struggling, sort of 12 to 15-year-olds. And on my way there, out of the blue, I just had an overwhelming tidal wave of sadness hit me out of nowhere, and I had no idea where that came from. I had to pull over. I was driving. I had to pull over, and I just started crying uncontrollably. It really took me, took me by surprise. I was very much didn't know what it is, but as I just started going into mental health youth work, it was something that I wasn't aware of, or something that was going on for myself. And I called, luckily my work were great. I called them up, said I need to go home, I'm not well. They spoke to the school. I ended up seeing a counsellor, I think for 6 weeks, which really helped. And I guess since then, I've been up and down with depression and anxiety. A term that I do an Instagram page called Angry Little Welshman. I'm from Wales originally, and it relates to the idea that how anger can be sometimes misunderstood. and how it can be used for good, but also that it's okay to get frustrated with things, but it's more important about how we manage that. And I still have difficult days in relation to those sorts of things. But I guess that page is to try and raise awareness about that, and you know, going on men's mental health as well, trying to connect more with men who don't open up. And the term that someone told me in a counselling session I was having only last 2019, it's not a diagnosis, but it's a term called low frustration tolerance, which isn't a diagnosis, but it is something that when he mentioned it as instead of like just anger, that is something that I struggle to deal with, is the kind of the impact of small things sometimes. And so that's a bit about me. I know that there's more going on, and as I mentioned, I'm speaking later in the week as well. But we will, you know, I'm looking after myself in a variety of ways, trying to have some routine whilst leaving room for spontaneity as well. And exercise and things really helps me. But we all have our days where we're finding it, you know, we can't manage, and that's okay. I think is one of the biggest revelations as one of the oldest young people, depending if you want to call me that here today, is that it's okay to have down days and accept that. It's when you, maybe if you're worried about you haven't come out of that as soon as you usually do, you should speak to a friend or a professional. Yeah, that's a bit about me. I'll leave it there. Is that okay?
That's fine. Perfectly fine.
I just realized my video off during that whole thing.
Yeah.
Oh, so sorry, everyone. That was a complete accident. I don't know how I managed. Oh.
In the beginning, it was there.
Yeah,
but it's fine.
It needs to be turning itself on and off sporadically. Hi, everyone. Sorry, this is the face to what was just said.
We now see the logos. Yeah.
Sorry about that, everyone. I'll fix that for later. But yeah, that's it from me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And then I would like to give the floor to Alejandra.
So hi everyone. So my name is Alejandra. I'm from Spain, and currently I'm living in Brussels. I'm a youth activist at Youth Mental Health. And well, I've been recently diagnosed with complex PTSD and generalized anxiety. I cannot recall exactly since when I'm having anxiety, to be honest. I'm pretty sure that at least 10 years. But the first time that someone told me so, it was around 5 years ago or something like that. And it was, it was a bit of a complicated situation. And how my family doctor managed it at the very beginning, it was really bad to the point that I refused to get any kind of help, and I tried to manage everything on my own, which of course was a complete disaster. I'm also dealing with some episodes of depression, and I have anxiety attacks and panic attacks with more frequency than I would like to. Also related to open up about this topic, I started doing it like a bit less than 3 years ago because it really didn't have a good acceptance among my friends or close people to me, or it was taken as something that was not really important or was not really affecting me, as they will know better than me what is affecting me. And that really pushed me back, and I decided I didn't want to share this with anyone. And it wasn't until I actually moved to Brussels and met other people and so on that I decided I wanted to share all of this with them. And I received a lot of support that I really did it. Of course, this also impacted on my studies. I it took me 2 more years to finish my bachelor, because it was when I started having a more harsh anxiety, and I was just simply not capable to manage everything, and I was not capable to finish my studies, and I was really confused and lost with what was going on around me and what I was feeling, and that made me go through a really, really tough time. I was volunteering at the same time at AEGEE actually, and that helped me somehow, but at the same time it also didn't make it better, because I was putting a lot of work on my shoulders to try to, let's say, avoid these feelings or these sensations, which was also not the greatest idea. And somehow I didn't want to accept the situation, and that brought me a bit to to all of that mess, until I decided, encouraged by some friends, to actually contact a psychologist and start the therapy. That this happened 2 years ago, and 1 year ago I started taking medication for the anxiety, the depression, and also to be able to sleep and to rest during the nights, because I'm having nightmares every day, and that doesn't allow me to rest, therefore not function during the day. So yeah, I think that's it for the introduction, and I will be telling you more a bit later.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing. And for the next person, I would like to give the floor to Jeff.
Hi everyone, does everyone hear me well? Because I'm using a new microphone technique or whatever. Thank you for sharing your story so vulnerably. As you probably all know or might know, Brené Brown, she's talking about vulnerability a lot and how it's a superpower. And that's how I tend to start my stories as well. So I'm 30 years old. For the people, you're probably not wondering how old I am, sorry. But anyway, I have a long history of mental health. I went to, I've had a very difficult childhood, like I think, like a story I heard before over here. And I went to I can't translate this all too well, I think, but the child psychiatrist. Yeah, I think that's a translation, for the first time when I was 8 years old, and I've been in constant therapy since I'm 12. So that's been 18 years for now. And I've struggled with a lot of topics concerned severe depression, and and almost 2 times suicide, very, very, very nearly. And the last time actually was about 3 years ago. And thanks to my mother and my psychologist, I had the opportunity to escape out of that situation. Starting last year in the pandemic, I noticed a lot of people around me were starting to feel mentally very uncomfortable, to say the least. Loneliness, stress, anxiety, signs of depression. And I'm not a professional myself, but I noticed that there's a lot of issues and trouble, and people not finding these professional people at all, or whatever you want to call it. So that's when I started a podcast about mental health with one of my best friends. It's called Onbespreekbaar, which is translated in English to, I actually don't know. Onbespreekbaar in English, it's
I think it's unspeakable, or on.
Yeah, is that a word in English?
Nah.
Unspeakable? It doesn't sound very natural, actually. Unspeakable. But it's like the correct, it's like stuff we don't talk about. I think there's a better word for it. If you feel free to tell me while we're speaking, because I just don't know. But it's we talk about a lot of stuff, and I think we quickly grew pretty popular with it, because I think the contrast about 2 grown-up men, and I emphasize men, because when I told my guy friends that I was going to do a podcast on mental health, they all told me that's silly, or that's loser stuff, like literally those words, that's for losers. So I had to find new friends, and I had to keep on pushing with the podcasts, and it all worked pretty well. So that's what we're doing right now. And I think that's the story that I'm trying to bring here today, is talking about making an opportunity of your vulnerability, making it your superpower. That's what we do. We sell t-shirts that say kwetsbaar. I don't have one. Well, I have one somewhere, but and kwetsbaar translates into vulnerable, because I think it's a superpower. It's not something bad. And that's the message we're trying to push. We're reaching a small million people each month. So good thing. And you know, that's it. I'm just trying to give people the opportunity to have a platform of self-reflection, of self-improvement, and especially trying to create that bridge between people who seek mental health and who offer it, because we're not professionals in that part, but we might or could be professionals in supplying that missing link. If we know that it's in Belgium, right? So I'm from Belgium. I'm sorry I didn't mention that, I think, but a lot of people seek mental health, but they don't find it. And there's like a real gap here in Belgium. I don't know if it's in Europe like that. I think that's why we're here. We're trying to find this stuff out, right? But in Belgium, there's a real gap in finding that mental health and offering it. And maybe that's where we come in through podcasts. It's all about easy messages. It's all about positive affirmation. It's all about self-reflection. You know, it's all about a community. And I think that could be a real good thing. That's maybe why I'm here. That's maybe why Nelleke invited me to be here. So that's my story. And thank you for listening, and glad to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And then last but not least, we have two family members who were willing to come to the panel. And I would like to introduce Britta and Lena. Maybe you want to say something about yourself or telling a little bit.
Yeah, we can say something. So my name is Lena, and that is Britta, my mother. I'm the sister of Jana, and this is obviously then the mother to this sister. Yeah, so we basically were, yeah, as my sister already said, her problems with mental health started quite early. And so both of us were basically from a very small age on kind of affected by it. I'm saying kind of because for me as the sister, I'm 2 years older than Jana, I'm 28. I never really had the feeling that I have to worry about her too much and that I have to basically bother myself with her problems, because I always felt that someone's there who's really taking good care of her. So I never really felt that I have to be involved in taking care of Jana's or helping in resolving Jana's mental health problems as much as I think my parents did. What I, as the sister, sometimes thought, and which I don't know was a bit weird, is rather the thought that I myself don't actually have mental health problems, or not that I'm aware of, let's put it that way. I usually am quite a happy person, and I've never visited a psychiatrist or anything. I don't actually have any real experience in the whole therapy context or whatever, except from what Jana's telling. So for me, this is quite interesting now to just hear some more, get some more input basically on how I might be able to help her. Yeah, but for my mom, it was a bit different. And for me, the problem was rather that I sometimes thought it's kind of unfair. We both are kids of the same parents. We grew up in the same household. It was basically the same for both of us. And we turned out so different. So for me, that was usually rather the thing that I thought, why is it that way? That and I felt it's just unfair that she had to basically, yeah, carry that burden, which I never had to worry about for myself. So yeah, I sometimes wish I could take half of her problems so that it would just be easier basically. And I could share a bit more of the experiences, which is obviously not possible, but yeah, that was what I struggled with most. Do you want to say something?
Yes, that's what I would like to do, to take a little bit of the burden of my daughter. But of course, it's not possible. That's why I'm here is, yeah, of course, it was a very hard experience for me as mother to have a daughter with such mental problems. And we had a long time when we didn't knew what is it exactly. Mm. And of course, I ask myself what is my part of it. I am guilty because I missed to do something, or why has my daughter this kind of problems? And what I learned over the years is to not only to take care on my daughter and to help her, but to learn self-care and to look after myself, to that I
put yourself in a position where you can actually help her.
Yes.
Yeah.
The stronger I am, that helpful. Can I be? Oh, sorry, I'm not very good in speaking English. And I'm very glad about my daughter, that she is telling about her problems, that she tells us to take us with her. And yes, sometimes it's not easy to be involved, but I'm glad to be involved. And when I have the possibility to help, I help the best I can. But a few months ago, before my daughter went the second time in hospital, it was really hard to support aushalten.
Nee, aushalten, endure.
Endure the situation. And I felt when my daughter told about suicide thoughts that I was really anxious, and I thought it's now it's the time that we really need help all together, and we can't manage the situation on our own. And I was very glad that our daughter asked us to bring her to the hospital, and that this experience is in the second time very different to the first time, and it helps her in a very good way, I think. Yes.
And I guess with Jana, the nice thing also is that she is doing her research, like quite a lot, especially for in which clinic does she want to go, what is the best clinic, or what is the best psychiatrist. She's tried so much. So I always feel like I can, if Jana says she wants to do something and she thinks that's the best for her, in that moment, I usually feel like I can trust her, or at least I do like to listen to her. I would never just go there and say, no, you should do that. You shouldn't do that. I would always listen to her and just, see what she thinks, and then discuss together, and really try respectfully to just discuss the pro and cons, and then in the end take a decision together, and which hopefully is the best for her. And if it isn't, then we have to change the way. And but I think the really most important thing, which I feel is also the most helpful, Jana, maybe she can tell us later if that is the case, I feel is that I hope she never feels really like she's alone. She always has someone there who she can talk to and who will assist. And that is, I think, our main goal, to just make her really feel, assisted, supported in whatever situation.
As comfortable as it's possible.
Yeah, as comfortable as possible.
And of course, we always, or I try always to let her decide on her own, to help her to find the best solution, the best decision, but not to
decide for her.
Decide for her, yes. Yeah, okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And your English is great. We can understand all very well, I think. Don't worry about that. Okay, so now we introduced everybody, so we will start with the first question we have for you guys, and that is, when did you realize that you have mental health problems? And some of you already talked about it a little bit, but maybe you can elaborate a little bit more about it. So who would like to start?
I can start, I think.
Of course.
Well, I think I realized I had mental health problems when I was like 13, but not really. I mean, I was always tired and I didn't feel like doing anything and just felt really down. But I thought it was just, I don't know, iron deficiency or something. So I went to the GP and did some blood work, but nothing came out. So I was like, okay, I have to stop being a child, and like, it's nothing. This is just how life is. But then later I started to realize that it really wasn't normal how I was feeling, because I started opening up to my friends a little bit, but not too much, because I kept everything inside, because I felt like I was too much and I was bothering everyone. But then when I was like 17, I went to a festival and I got really drunk. It was like the second time ever I drank alcohol. Yeah, I was so drunk that I blacked out. I don't remember anything, but apparently I finally opened up about stuff, but not in a really healthy ways. So I threatened to kill myself at the festival, and then I don't know what I did exactly, but my friends were all really worried, and then they took me to the medical staff of the festival and they called the police, and my mom had to pick me up from the police office. So that was basically when everyone was like, you really have a problem, and I had to go to therapy and stuff. So yeah, I think that's when I finally really realized it. I mean, I knew something was a little bit wrong, but I didn't really take it serious. And yeah, I guess that's my answer.
Thank you.
Thank
you so much. Who would like to go next?
Wait,
yeah.
Am I meant to keep my camera on for like this panel stuff, or should I put it out or something?
You can choose it yourself. It's your own decision. If you want to keep it off in between that the rest is talking, that's fine.
I don't really care. I don't know what.
It's fine. You can keep it on as well.
I can go next. I think for me, it was also when friends realized it, because I got the diagnosis when I was 13, but my therapist didn't even talk about it with me. So it was never really introduced to me, like what it actually meant, or it was just on the paper. So I didn't really understand what was going on. But then as I got older and I moved out of my parents' place, I started living with friends, and they also noticed my eating patterns, or sometimes I would just disappear for a while and turn my phone off. And yeah, they just noticed me laying in bed a lot, or working a lot. So I think that's when I realized that there was something going on. And that's also when therapy started to work, because I realized it myself. And a lot of friends came up to me saying like, yeah, we're really afraid that you're going to kill yourself, and we just want to know that you're safe. So I think when I was around 18 or 19, that's when I really realized it. And I think that's also when I really accepted that I needed and wanted help. So that's for me.
Thank you for sharing.
I can go next.
Yeah.
So as I said before, I'm not really sure when all of this actually started for me. Yeah, I can say for sure that since 5 years ago, my family doctor told me that I suffer from anxiety, but there was never a diagnosis until recently. But now, like, since I'm seeing my psychologist since 2 years ago, and we are going through everything that happened in my past, in my teenage or childhood and so on, basically I can see that I developed a trauma since very early age without knowing it. And and that was causing me certain behaviors. I'm a sensitive person on my own already, so I may cry up more than other people or things like that, and that was really criticized from my friends back then and so on. So all of those comments were impacting me so much and feeling so judged and so on, but I didn't know what, I couldn't really understand why those things were affecting me so much, much more than to other people. So I think I could say quite certainly that I probably started having anxiety, 10 years ago when I was 16, more or less. But yeah, I'm also not super certain about it, but yeah, I think that's what I can share.
I think for me, there's a very big distinction basically between when I realized, now looking in hindsight with the knowledge that I have now, I would say that I actually started having problems the moment that I started compensating for my stress by excessively starting to game. But in that moment itself, that really didn't seem like a problem. That's felt more like Ramón was also saying, like a solution to something. And actually, it didn't even feel like a problem, even when it got more and more and worse. Up until the point, like I said earlier, where I dropped out of school and my whole world started falling apart. But then it actually went way beyond feeling like mental health problems. It immediately felt like I, as a person, was broken and could no longer be fixed, basically. So I kind of gave up on myself. And therefore, it didn't really feel like seeing it as a problem, because if something can't be fixed, then why would you view it as a problem? Because a problem is something that you try to find a solution for, and I didn't feel like there was any. So I think I finally started to see my problems as mental health problems in the moment that I already felt a little bit better again, and that I did feel like there was some kind of perspective for me, so that there were different outcomes that could be found by working on myself. I think that is the moment that I saw my problems as mental health problems in the way that I look at mental health problems the way I do now.
Thank you both.
I could go next. I think I noticed that the skin picking problematic, I think that was the first one I really noticed as unusual, or as actually problematic. And I was probably 13 or something like that when I actually knew for sure that this was a problem. But then the depression, but the self-help groups concerning, I told you about self-help groups, but they were much later, because skin picking disorder was fairly unknown to that at that time. So I did find something on the internet, but not much. And then the suicide thoughts and depression and stuff hit. And I did not realize actually that I was having mental health problems at that age, I think. I mean, I was 13, 14, I was thinking I was a drama queen. That's what my friends told me. So I knew I had problems, but I thought for a very long time that it was my fault, that and it was my personality, or I was doing stuff wrong. So I was lucky that I got help at that time, because I had a physical problem. I got a migraine, and because it was a complex migraine with an aura, I don't know if you all know what that means, but I got in the hospital because of that condition. And in the hospital, I was crying so much that one of the staff members asked me if I wanted to see a psychiatrist. Before that, I didn't even know that psychologists or something like that existed. And I'm just lucky that I got through this situation to get the help I needed. And I'm very thankful that that happened today, because that way I found a way into the support system, you know. And then I also figured that the problems I had may not have all been my fault after all. So yeah, but that's still a process, to be honest. It's I think it's quite difficult with mental health problems to actually find the boundaries where it is, where I can actually do something about it and change something and help myself getting better, and where I can't, because the illness is just so bad that I just can't do anything anymore, and I need, for example, medication or support from others. And I think I only really realized how bad mental health problems can get last year, when the situation got so out of hand. I mean, I tried in the situation. I tried quite a lot of things, like meditation, sports, seeking out contact with others, physical contact, or trying to just work through it, keep going, doing stuff like the dishes or whatever, what helped in the past with certain symptoms, but nothing helped anymore. It just literally nothing helped anymore, and that was so horrible. And I think that was the first time I really realized mental health problems aren't just problems of individuals who can't cope. They are illnesses, and they should be treated as such. I don't know.
Thank you for sharing. Is there anyone else that would like to contribute to this question? Or otherwise we can move on to the next one. Nick.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Of course, my camera that I had is broke, so I'm now, if I'm looking that way, it's because I'm trying to figure out what screen I'm using. Yeah, I guess I alluded to it earlier, where it just kind of hit me quite unexpectedly. For a long time, I think I did behaviors that, sorry to maybe go on about this a bit too much, but if you know, this is in the mid 2000s, if a girl was doing these behaviors, she would have gotten help straight away. Whereas because I was a boy, so I just realized it's really dark as well. Because I was a boy, it was kind of just seen as me acting out. So for instance, I used to punch things quite a lot and headbutt walls quite a lot to cope with difficulties and frustrations. You know, I used to get quite bloody knuckles, and I punched a hole in a university hall, you know, once. Yeah, and that was just kind of seen as a guy blowing. Don't get me wrong, probably still seen a bit as like, oh, that's not usual, but it was maybe thought was, I don't know, it wasn't looked as completely unusual that it was maybe someone needing to figure out better coping mechanisms. And then yeah, but I touched on the idea earlier of, well, not the idea of how or when it happened, and I guess once I spoke to a counselor for a bit. That was kind of when I was in like 23. That was when I kind of, I guess, knew that I I had to manage. That's when I became more aware of those issues, I guess, and that I had to manage that. I think more than anything else. As mentioned earlier, I've not got a diagnosis, and the older you get, the harder it is to get one. And so I think it was, but that was the moment that I found, which I think is worth noting, because obviously everyone struggles, as Ramón was saying earlier, we all struggle with different types of mental health difficulties, and then there's mental health illness where you can get a diagnosis and potentially more support. So actually, when you don't have a diagnosis, it's sometimes really hard to get the support you might need. But I guess that moment kind of made me be more aware, even though I was working in mental health, made me become more aware of my own well-being, which I hadn't been looking at all before. And I think it's, often talking about stigma then, as is the theme for today, it is very much about making people aware of the different ways you can be impacted by mental health in a negative and difficult way, and that it's not just going to a psychiatrist and having, I'm on meds at the moment, but I'm not, like I said, not formally in the system, and that's something that is more needed to be known about. If I was taught about that in school, for example, about not necessarily meditation, but finding things that you do to why you do them, because back in my day, school was very much you did sports and art and things like that, all of these amazing creative and energetic activities, but you were never taught, and you were taught about the physical. So art, I don't know, again, you were taught that art is good and to the eye of the beholder, but you were still taught that it was a competitive or it's good or bad type situation. And then with sports was about your physical body, it helped your legs, you breathe better, blah, blah, blah. At no point did anyone talk about the benefits these things can have of just by doing them. And don't get me wrong, always up for a healthy bit of competition in things as well. But I think that's something that, could be really useful, as not trying to, would have been really useful for me, is to understand kind of my relationship to sport and other things and how much it helped me, and that I should seek to do more of it maybe, or less of it if I'm overdoing it, to support my mental health. So I guess that's, I did touch on when I first realized it, but it was realizing that this is something that I need to manage. That was quite a big realization, I guess, at that time. So yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And because of the time, we will now take a short break of 10 minutes, and then afterwards we will come back for the next questions. Yes. Okay, perfect. So then we will move on to our second question. And this will be, what is your experience with therapy or with medication? Who would like to start?
I can start if no one else wants to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I have had a lot of experience with different kind of therapies. Where to start? There was outpatient therapy. So with one therapist for a certain amount of time once a week. I have seen different therapists in this kind of setting, and also different kind of therapy types, because I mean, you probably know that there is behavioral therapy, psychoanalytical therapy, and I don't know the third one in English, where the relationships in the past, in the early ages are relevant. So there are different types and with different focuses. And I had the best experience, I think, with behavioral therapy. It is the most practical, I guess. And it did help me a lot concerning my skip picking disorder. Because we did the habit reversal training. It's one kind of protocol to treat skin picking disorder or trichotillomania. Exactly, that's assisted disorder. And that was good, even though in this particular therapy, I had quite some issues with the therapist herself. So the relationship wasn't very good. I had quite trust issues concerning her, and these got quite in the way of the therapeutic process, and also led to me breaking up the therapeutic relationship, which was kind of sad because, as I said, I liked the method. And yeah, that was one experience I had. I also had therapy outpatient in this outpatient setting, where we just talked, and that was supporting me for a year or a year and a half until the Krankenkasse, the people who pay for the therapy didn't the insurance company, they would only pay a certain amount of or a certain number of sessions, and so I could only see them until they stopped paying. Exactly. Then I experienced a stationary being in a hospital twice, and as I said, the first time was awful, and it was bad because I felt like there was a lot of pressure put on me to take a certain medication, and I wasn't, and there was not much talking going on. They didn't explain to me why they wanted me to take certain medication, and also those medications did put me in a worse state than I was before. So that was very bad, and I also felt like I couldn't reach any one of the staff members. So that was quite bad. Also, there wasn't much of an there weren't much opportunities what I could do when I was there, like music therapy or walks, or I don't know, whatever. I mean, I wasn't allowed to go out, and inside there weren't any activities I could really do. So that's why I had to leave that place. At the second time at the hospital, I went. I stayed 2 months at the end of the last year. That was much better. There were a lot more structure, so more things to go to, events. Like events, I mean, like therapy situations with other patients, and I also felt more secure altogether. I can't exactly explain it. And I also didn't feel pressured as much to take any medication. I was also offered to take medication, but they left it up to me if I actually wanted to take them or not. Exactly. So, and medication. Yeah, I have also experience with medication. At the beginning, I didn't like taking medication at all concerning my mental health issues. And with the first time I didn't have good experience. It was Valium I got, so diazepam. That didn't that was counterproductive in my case. But later on I got quetiapine, so it's a it's against delusions and psychotic symptoms, and so that helped. Maybe it just helped because it put me to sleep. Maybe I don't know, but it did help. So I'm much more of a fan of this kind of medication than I was before. I was quite scared beforehand, because when you read the explanation paper, it's quite scary. And now I'm trying lithium, and at the moment I feel I don't. It doesn't seem like I'm taking anything at all, to be honest. So I'm okay with it, because it's meant to help on the long run to prevent other episodes from happening, so that I won't get delusional again in the best case. But I can only know if it really works after a year or something. So I have to just take it and see how it goes. And at the moment, I'm just happy that I don't have much side effects or anything. So yeah, well, that was a lot. I give it to the next.
I would just like to add like a really little bit from the relatives perspective. So with the hospitalization, for me, the second time now felt also much safer, and somehow it was easier because it was just nearer. The first time Jana was in a hospital that was like far away from where we live, so it was possible to visit, but it was harder to do it all the time, and it drained our own mental capacities as well, because you had to travel all the time. You were basically on the road more than you were able to visit, and also it gave a bit of a better feeling when she was here now, like in the vicinity, because in case there were problems, or if there had been problems, it would have been much easier to just say, okay, Jana, come on. And it would have been a thing of 10 minutes and not like 3 hours, which also made it, I think, for us as the relatives, better in the second time.
I want to add something. The first time it was horrible for me, because my daughter wasn't my daughter anymore because of the medication. She was like a zombie. And it was really hard to be with her and to see her in that way. The last time it was nearer, but because of the pandemic situation, we wasn't able to see her anyway.
Yeah,
it wasn't at all. Yes, it wasn't possible to see her at all. But but it was possible to go there, to bring her stuff that she wanted to have. And yes, for example, to bring her some samosas from Indian food. She wanted to eat, and she was so happy about it. And so was I when I was able to bring her some stuff. But what was really better was that we had the feeling that she feels better in the hospital here near us, and of course it was easier to share to share the Verantwortung.
Responsibility.
The responsibility, yes, because my daughter was here, my husband is here, and we were able to share the responsibility, and to share it, of course, with the doctors, psychologists, and so on. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Thank you, guys. Alejandra, do you have any?
Yes,
Yeah.
I can comment on here. Well, my first experience was, as I said, with my family doctor. I was feeling like as I was having something that could be anxiety, but I didn't know. So I went there, and after talking for, I think, literally 3 minutes, she told me, yeah, you have anxiety and you have some depression, so take these anxiolytics and antidepressants. That was really harsh, because my reply to that was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. But she kept insisting and she kept insisting, and how good they will be for me and so on, that I didn't know what to do. So in the end, I took them. I took them for, if I'm not mistaken, 2 months or 1.5 months. And I was feeling so much not myself. I was sleeping a lot. I was always tired. It was just unbearable that I went there and I told her, I'm super fine. Everything went away, and I stopped the medication. So my first, let's say, contact with medication and a doctor that was not even a psychologist or a psychiatrist was really bad. So then I actually started my therapy here in Brussels. Well, and I'm doing it here in Brussels, and I'm doing my therapy in English, which is not my native language. So it's another challenge for me as well. But it went much more better. I have to say that when I started, I didn't know why I was starting. Like, it's a bit more complex. Like, I knew why I was starting it, but I was not understanding it at the same time. It was like I was not comfortable with it. And for like 4 or 5 months, I was not comfortable with it. And I didn't know why I kept just going there. And then I had to stop. Well, I stopped for 2 months because of different reasons. And then suddenly I realized this is why I need it, because I started having really harsh anxiety for a long time, for 2 months, a lot of anxiety, panic attacks continuously, and I didn't know how to manage it. Then when I restarted, I realized why that was good for me. And I started going more relaxed and calm to the sessions. Some are more manageable, others are tougher, and I'm just crying for the rest of the day. But now I feel good doing it. And related to medication, it was last year in February, before all the pandemic started, actually. So the first step had nothing to do with the pandemic. I was having a lot of anxiety for topics that we were tackling during the sessions. And I was having panic attacks and anxiety attacks continuously during 3 weeks. So that was really unbearable, and that was not manageable at all. I was even crying in the office when I was going to work, had to work from home several times because I could just not stop myself from crying the whole night, and just didn't know how to manage it anymore. And it was when my psychologist suggested me to see a psychiatrist. And at the beginning, I didn't want to do it because of my first experience with all of that. But somehow I thought about it, and I was like, okay, I know how my first experience went. I know that if I say no, it's going to be a no, because I will decide not to buy the medication and that's it. And I can just see. And the person to whom my psychologist redirected me was really kind, really nice, understanding, and giving me the power of choosing. As Jana was also mentioning her second experience, like I actually had the power over what I'm gonna do or not. She told me, if you want to take anxiolytics, this is what I recommend, but you decide if you wanna do it or not. And that's when I wanted to give it a try. And the same happened when the first lockdown started, that I really got into a not super deep, but enough deep depression. And with the antidepressants and with the quantities and everything, every time that I'm getting some medication, we discuss it and she suggests and she makes sure that I'm okay with it and I can call her anytime if I have any issue. And my psychologist knows which medication I'm taking and the amount and everything. So both of them have the overview and both of them give me the power to decide on what I want to do with their suggestions, of course, as professionals. So that made me feel really empowered. And I think in that sense, my experience in the end with therapy, my still ongoing experience and medication, it's really, really positive.
Thank you so much for sharing. It's really nice to hear that the second experience for you both was better than the first. Maybe May, would you like to comment on this?
Yeah, sure. For me, the first few years were also like, I didn't really think it was beneficial, the therapy I tried. It actually started in high school. Something happened there, and one of the teachers sent me to like a social worker at school. But quite soon, this person also said to me, like, you need to see a psychologist. So she referred me to one. And I was just sitting there, not really knowing why I was there. I mean, I saw it on the paper, but I felt like the person didn't really understand me and was judging me as well. So I really didn't feel free to talk about what was going on in my mind. And I just kept on saying, like, yeah, I'm doing a bit better and it's fine. And I stayed there for 2 years. And I think about a year of it, I did EMDR. So, like, it was focused on traumas. But I just didn't understand what my psychologist was trying to do. So I was just doing what I was told. And then I also thought, like, I guess it's supposed to, you know, be, I'm supposed to feel better. So I'm just going to say I feel better. And then I graduated high school and I left, and I just didn't really have a connection. But it was my first time, and I just didn't really think about that there would be more psychologists out there who have like different methods. I was just like, okay, this person didn't make me feel safe, so I'm just going to do it on my own. So I did that for a while, actually. But that's also where I started working a lot. And back then I was doing sports at a pretty high level, so I was either doing that or working. And I did all of that to distract myself from being alone with me, because I was afraid of my own thoughts. But at the same time, I didn't want to meet up with friends. I just wanted to be in my room and isolate myself from everyone. But my performance at school was actually pretty good. So no one really noticed that I was never there, or yeah, no one really asked about it. So I also thought, like, okay, maybe this is just how everyone feels. I guess it's not a big thing. But then 2.5 years ago, I started going to therapy again. It was actually after something happened. There was this night where I was sexually abused, and I tried to keep that for myself, like to myself, for a while. But then I just yeah, I experienced a lot of negative and bad things from it. So I went to see a psychologist again in a different city. And yeah, I also felt like I couldn't really trust that person. So I also did EMDR there. And then during the same time, I found a support group that I could go to. And that was actually really, really helpful because I was in a room with people who had experienced the same. And I finished that specifically for sexual abuse. And then afterwards, I started group therapy. That's been almost 1.5 years now. I'm still in group therapy, and it's quite cognitive. And right now, I'm looking with my therapist at starting schema therapy as well. But group therapy has helped me a lot because I got to talk to people who felt the same, who understood me, and it was also nice for me that I could have a conversation, because with my other psychologists, it was me talking, but they were very close, so they would never share anything. And now I'm with people who struggle as well. Obviously, there are therapists there, but it's just nice to feel supported and feel understood. So yeah, that definitely helps me now.
Thank you for sharing. And maybe also we can look at the social aspects of therapy and medication. So maybe some of you can tell how your family and friends reacted to your mental health problems and the possible addition of therapy and medication. Yeah, Jeff.
I'll be I haven't spoken in a while, so I just want to add in on May. Like, thank you for that story. It's just two things that I think about, making a segue to social, the social value of mental health. What really struck to me in that story, and I of course don't know what you've been through as a person, but when you say you've been through EMDR, and I know what EMDR is, I really like it myself, but I do it on my own. The exercises, it really helps me. You've done trauma therapy, and now you say, oh, group therapy is really helping me. I'm always thinking, and I'm not a professional, like I said, I'm not a professional, but I'm always very convinced that other people might help you in a way that you do not expect it. And that's why group therapy helps, but also like the genuine connection. And when we try to dissect what makes us happy in society, because when you talk about mental health, a lot of people tend to think about mental health like, oh, depression and stuff. But when we talk about physical health, we don't automatically think about cancer, right? So that just strikes a bit to me. And I think when we talk about mental health, we can also talk about mental well-being. And then that part about from mental health, I absolutely know that group therapy is something very beneficial. So when we talk about the social impact of mental health, like how our family reacts or whatever, I know that's your segue, but I would just want to add in that the social aspect of mental health is super, super important. I've done more than 100 group calls with many different people, many ages, genders, races, whatever, you know, and everyone has things. Oh, I'm struggling with anxiety. I'm struggling with PTSD. I'm struggling with failure thoughts or whatever. I'm not sure how to translate it all, you know, but every single one of them, every time again, on 100 times, every single time, people get out of the meeting and they feel, whoa, I'm not alone in this. And the feeling of not being alone in whatever you battle can be, I'm not trying to go light over the situation, because I've had many therapy myself, but I just noticed that the social aspect and actually having exposure around other people, and it's something that really helps for me. I just wanted to add that in, that the social aspect is heavily underrated and under discussed when it comes to mental health. And you know, don't take it from me, there's a lot of professors who say this claim as well, and especially in mental, like when someone dies, you know, it can have such a big impact on our family, but my own psychologist says is that we should talk about this kind of stuff more in society. We should talk to each other, to one another, when someone dies. Not and you know, like there's a saying that the Dutch psychiatrist Dirk de Wachter, if you know him, you do. If you don't, look him up. Dirk de Wachter, he's very interesting. He says that a lot of our grief is over psychiatrized is not a word, but I hope you know what I mean by that. Like, grief is over psychiatrized. And I think that what biggest thing that helped me to get out of severe childhood trauma and I say this as someone who's been doing this for 80 years, is literally talk to people about it who understand and have the feeling that I'm not alone in it. So once more, group therapy is something that I widely applaud, but maybe it doesn't work for all of you. So that's just what I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it was a really good addition. So maybe, yeah, I see you're muted. Of course, go ahead.
Sorry. I want to add something as, yeah, because from my perspective, I'm very happy that my daughter speaks about her problems with other people. And she gave me the permission to do it the same. And for me, it's very helpful to talk about my problems and to talk about the problems of my daughter with my friends, and to realize that everyone that I talk to knows about the problems because of the own experience or because of the mental illness illness of a person in the environment. So me either don't feel alone with my problem as a parent, and I feel that of course the mental illness isn't a stigma anymore. You can really talk about it to other person.
Depends, I guess, on to whom you talk to, but I feel that in our bubble, let's put it that way, in our bubble of friends and family and whomever, we can actually talk about these problems or these illnesses without having to fear that anyone thinks less of either us nor Jana. So it's for everyone, it's just a topic to be discussed to help each other. It's nothing to be discussed to degrade someone. So that is really, but that is, I think, really our bubble. But
even when I talk to my Vorgesetzte,
my boss,
to my boss, yes. Even when I talk to my boss, when Jana was in hospital, not in Berlin, far away, it was possible to talk about her illness and to get the permission to visit her and to verpassen.
To miss
some
work meetings.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I want to invite you to talk about your problems. Yeah,
not just in group therapy.
Not just in group therapy.
Although group therapy obviously is a cool thing. Yeah. Definitely a good thing. Yeah. Okay,
that's it.
Thank you. Maybe Paul, can you
add something to that?
Oh, of course. Sorry. Yeah. No, May, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with all of you. And I think from my work perspective as well, I see that whenever we organize these events where we talk about a specific mental illness, you just see people glow up because they're finally surrounded by people who are going through the same, and they feel heard and understood, and they know that whatever they say, they're not going to get those judgments or things like just be happy or just eat or whatever. It's just like it was said before, it's heavily underrated that people just need to be heard and understood. And that's something that not a lot of people can offer if they haven't gone through it. So yeah, I agree. It's very, very important. That's just what I wanted to add to it.
Yes. Thank you. And Paul, can you maybe also contribute to this? Can you tell something about it?
Yeah, so I can definitely agree on the group therapy part, or not even always therapy, but like peer support settings. I think that was for me like the main shift in things where I really saw, okay, I'm talking to other people who are dealing with similar things as me, but they are doing okay. They are going through this. They are making it out alive. And perhaps that's also possible for me. So that's a really hopeful message. And it's also really nice to be able to talk with people who understand you and who you don't have to explain everything in very detail for them to be able to understand you. And I think that's also the same reason why many of my friends right now are people who I actually met throughout my mental health journey, to say it in that way, because it's so nice to be able to relate to them on that level. While at the same time, that also has a negative side, I think, that for my original friend group, they didn't have that same connection with mental health, and I did have to explain everything to them, and it was very foreign to them. So it was really hard to keep a connection with your social network when you're going through this. I actually met one of my best friends from back then later on, and we hadn't talked in years, and he said to me, yeah, sorry that I didn't keep in touch with you, but I thought you were psychotic. And I had two thoughts at that moment. One was, well, that's I wasn't. So that's just something that you made up in your head, apparently. And secondly, so what if I was? Apparently, that was such a big thing in that social environment that when someone would be psychotic, that would be a reason to not be into contact with them anymore because it's scary or it's, I don't know. So it really can make a big division, I think, and that's kind of sad. And one thing I would also like to add is for my family. So this was really from my own perspective, but for my family, and something I think is really underrated is that it can often also be hard. So that's why I'm also really happy that Jana's family is also here to share their perspective, because it's really not talked about a lot. And my mother actually works in mental health herself. So she's quite familiar with it, but she had such a hard time with dealing with the fact that I was also going through mental health problems, and she felt really powerless against it because I was admitted to a mental hospital, and well, they were taking care of me, so the care was kind of taken away from her. So she felt really powerless in that sense, that she couldn't do anything herself to help me. That caused her to also become not depressed in a very deep way, but to such a level that she really felt like she needed some professional help to deal with her own feelings related to me going through that. So that's kind of, yeah, was really sad to hear that it can have such an impact on your environment as well.
Thank you. I also wanted to say that if anybody from the audience has some questions, you can put it in the chat, and then we will ask you to tell us. Does anybody else want to add something to this? Okay, and then we will move on to the fourth question. And how have your mental health problems impacted your studies or your work or your profession? Maybe May would like to start?
Sure. So let me start with studying. I think for me, I was able to study really well. And like I said before, it was for me something to focus on. So I wouldn't be with my thoughts and everything that was going on in my mind. So I was able to focus on a lot of things. It was my coping mechanism. So that wasn't a big deal for me, but then I missed out on the social part of it. And then afterwards, I started working. And even now, when I work in mental health, I find it really hard to take a break. So I just keep on working and working. Even though I tell other people to have breaks, it's really hard for me to do that actually, because I have to learn to be, I'm really good being on my own, but I have to learn how to control the negative thoughts. And that's also why I'm in therapy, of course. But I don't always feel safe enough with me and my own mind. So that's why I feel like I have to do something so that I can just avoid it. But in terms of productivity and everything, I'm actually extremely productive. I know that's not the case for everyone. But I think it also shows that even if you have a mental illness, it doesn't necessarily mean you cannot do something. It still means you can study or work, and in some cases you can't, and both are okay. But I think what I've experienced a lot is that people told me I couldn't be depressed or whatever because I went to school or I worked. So that was really frustrating. But I do think I have a lot of anxiety as well, so I could never do presentations in front of a class because it reminded me of something traumatic that happened when I was younger. And because I didn't feel like school was a safe environment to talk about it, I never actually got to learn those skills. So I think even though I was able to study or work, I do miss, I missed out on some skills that I wish I would have learned. And it makes me really insecure about talking in general. So yeah, I would definitely say it was unhealthy for me to focus so much on studying from a book because yeah, I really wasn't feeling well and no one saw that. And I think now I wish that I would have spoken about it, and I think then I would also have learned a bit more about dealing with my anxiety, because I think right now it's really hard to, I think it's easier to learn that when you're younger. So yeah, I think that's what I want to say about it.
Thank you. And I see we have some questions from the audience. So maybe Laura, would you like to ask your own question?
Okay, thank you, Liz. My question was more in the sense of if any of you have felt discriminated ever in the university or while volunteering at work because of being the therapy, or because you had a depression, or because of whatever other reason related to your mental health problems.
Jana, maybe you have a comment on this?
Were you talking to me?
Yeah, maybe you have an answer to the question.
Well,
Laura.
I actually just thought about it. I don't think I directly have ever been discriminated against concerning my mental health problems. If at all, it might have been my insecurities that resulted from my mental health problems that might have led to social discrimination or of some kind. But I would generally say I actually have been very, very lucky concerning this topic. So I would give up to some of the others.
Yes, thank you. Maybe Alejandra?
So in those situations, I don't think I have been discriminated because, well, since I started working, I have to say I have been super lucky and having really supportive teams and everything. So that was really, really good. When I was in university, I didn't really know that I had mental health problems. So yeah, it was not a thing why I should like to be discriminated, basically. But I think I can highlight like mainly with group of friends before coming to Brussels. More than discriminated, not being heard and being really judged about it. The same comment that Maya said, like, oh, how you can have the depression or anxiety In my case, you're smiling all day. Yeah, well, I smile, but that doesn't mean I don't go through tough stuff, no? So it's also, for me, it's also a coping mechanism. And many times I talk about this a bit like laughing about it, while actually it's nothing to laugh about, but it's a way for me to cope with it as well. So more in the social sense, yes. So that's why it took me quite a long time to actually open up to people. And it was when it started to be accepted, and not only accepted, but not treated me differently. Because when I first moved to Brussels, I moved to the board of AEGEE-Europe. And when I told to my team, one of the things that I told them as well was like, I don't want you to treat me differently because of that. Not at all. Like, I'm one more, I have my issues, and I will deal with it. And if I need help, I will ask for it. But I don't want you like in any case to treat me differently because of that. So I think in that sense, I have been also lacking those environments, more lacking that support in the social one.
Thank you. I also saw that Liz has a question. Can you maybe unmute yourself? And I see your camera going on. Yeah.
So my question is more specifically on the things that are helpful from people from the outside. So as relatives or as friends or family, which things have really helped you and were really supportive. But also a bit of the I don't want to say negative side, but on the things you make or be able to avoid. So which things did not help you in that process? And especially gearing towards this, okay, I would like to learn like how to have these conversations. What would be, which friends were helpful for you in which kind of situation?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I think it's for me it was always quite helpful to feel like I could just be in that moment, however, with whatever feeling I was bringing into the situation, and to feel understood without the need that anything has to change. Like, for example, if I'm really sad, that I can just be sad in that moment and I can cry, and the other person is there for me, but doesn't feel the need we have to immediately change something about the situation, because either emotion is okay and has a right to be there, and has the right to be felt, and it has the right to be expressed. And so I always felt it was helpful when I had the room to do so, and felt secure with whomever to do so. Also, you asked what didn't help. I often have experienced that it's very difficult for me when other people try to advise me, or try to or give me give tips, and say like, have you tried XYZ? Have you tried this one? Have you tried that? Why don't you do that? And this is exactly the opposite of what I just tried to say before that, because usually I usually tried those things, and or it's not what I want right now. Otherwise, I would do it. In those situations, I usually need emotional support, and just to be seen, heard, with whatever there is. And maybe if I want to be hugged, maybe I need a hug or something like that, but no change. You could also, I think what I find helpful is if people ask me what I need or want, because in the end I'm the specialist. I'm the specialist of my person. I know best what I need, if I have no idea at all what might be helpful, you can obviously ask if I want you to give me an inspiration, and maybe I say, yeah, that would be helpful, and then you can offer me a tip or something. But before that, I usually found it useful if people were just there for me. Yeah, and maybe if I have actually good ideas, what I need, or what could be helpful, it's obviously also helpful to help me realize that. So in case I need a room that is quiet, it's helpful if you stop the music in case you were listening to music, in case that's possible for you in the moment, stuff like that. Or if I want to go outside for a walk, but don't want to do it alone because I have too much anxiety, you could offer to join me in case that's something you can offer me right now because you have the time. If you don't have the time, I think it's also very important that people draw their own lines and clearly state their own boundaries, and do not do anything or promise anything they can't or don't want to execute. I mean, you know what I mean, I guess. Yeah, so much from my side on this one.
Is there somebody else who would like to contribute to this question?
I can say something if you want, because I have to leave in 5 minutes.
Okay.
I'm reading the comments as well. I'm checking what you all are saying, and I saw some question at another place, but I can't find it anymore. It's how can we open the conversation to people with mental illness or bad thoughts? It doesn't have to be mental illness. Just something that I think about loudly is it's a question we get a lot on our platform, and in my opinion, we do too much administration. What I mean by that is that when we have a talking group, everyone's talking, oh, post-corona, I can't wait to see each other again. And I'm like, partly, but otherwise no, because I think that Zoom thing, we don't have eye contact. I agree on that, but we have to think about the words that we speak to each other. How oftentimes do we meet with 6, 7, 8 person in group? And what's going on with you? Oh, I'm okay today. I went to the dentist this morning and it was this and it was that. And the fact is that we don't really honestly care all that much about that stuff. We want to know what are we thinking about? What are emotions? So my advice for that part is when I notice that someone is feeling really bad and you ask the question, can I help you? Is something bothering you? The answer is usually no, because when I had bad thoughts, my answer was also no. It's like asking a small child from 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, how was your day at school? Great. That's the answer you get, right? So how do you get that child? How do you get that person to open up about themselves? And it's always my opinion. And it's like I say, it's my opinion to ask very contextual questions like what did you learn in school today? When was the last time you had a good sleep? When was the last time you laughed so hard you couldn't breathe decently? And when you ask these type of questions, very contextual, where the person gives an answer, they always kind of intentionally or not reveal that they are actually not feeling well. Oh, I haven't laughed very hard in quite a while. Oh, why not? It's something. And then you get these questions, and in a very natural way, people will open up to you. So that's one part. But the other part is, and let me reverse the situation. When you think about, let's say, one of your enemies, maybe you don't have any enemies, and I'm happy for you. That's the case for me as well. But just think about maybe someone that you just really don't like, not at all. So, you're watching television and you say, oh, I hate this guy, or I hate this girl, I hate this person, whatever. And then they tell an really emotional story that you can really see yourself in. And then you think, whoa, I actually feel like that as well. And because when we share our vulnerabilities with each other and you start, a lot of magic happens. I'm from nightlife. I'm actually throwing parties. I've been throwing parties all my life. And I always notice that there's a lot of partying going on. Then there's one guy, you know, going outside, having a smoke, and I'm sitting next to him like, oh, you're not feeling it tonight, huh? No, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And then you ask some contextual questions, and all of a sudden you have this amazing, deep, long 1 hour conversation with someone, and you're really growing as friends. So that's my thing on opening up. That's my thing about listening to people, listening to listen, not to reply, not to give advice, but just to listen, you know. So that's my 2 cents on the topic, and I've really learned a lot from you people today, so thank you for that. That's my 2 cents, 5 cents, I don't know.
Thank you. Thank you. And indeed, because of the time, we would like all the speakers to give your final message, which you would like to give to the participants. Can maybe Paul, you can go first.
Yes, certainly. Yeah, I can really relate back to something that Nick was talking about earlier about, for example, how we learn about our bodies in physical education at school, but we don't really learn anything about our own mental health in school. And I think many of the things that we deal on later on in life kind of stem from that we don't really know that we can take care of our own mental health, and that there are words to express what we are feeling that maybe are not that obvious in common language. So I would really encourage the education system to incorporate this, learn children from a very early age to reflect on their own inner being, and learn the skills and the words so that they can know how to take care of themselves and know how to communicate about it.
Thank you. May?
Yes, I definitely agree with you. And I think also what I want to give to everyone who's here, I want you to make sure that you're really not alone. And from my perspective, were a lot of times where I thought it was my fault that I was feeling that way, but I know it isn't. It's not your fault or your decision that you're going through this. And again, talking about it really helps. So I would really suggest that you find a community, whether it's online or offline, where it's just safe to talk about your struggles and where people support you. And yeah, your environment is really important. So that would be my advice.
Thank you. Alejandra?
Yes, so well, it's been a lot that we spoke today. I would like to say that it's, as May say, it's really important with whom you surrounded to. And for me, having my friends right now here in Brussels was something that really helped me. And I could literally say that it basically saved my life, more or less. So get that support from the people that you trust. And if you're not dealing with a mental health problem, be that person in which someone can get support, because that will be the best help and the best thing you could do.
Thank you. Jana?
I just say I think it's important to keep in mind that we all are so much more than any difficulties we have, more than our disabilities, more than our mental health problems, more than our physical problems, whatever it is that bothers us. We have so many sides to consider and to think about and to focus on, so keep that in mind.
Thank you so much. And then Britta and Lena?
We are muted. First, I want to thank you all for your share, and I think it's I learned so much about mental illness in the last few years. And I learned so much about self-care because of that. And I want to invite you to take care of yourself. For example, to choose the people, the friends that helps you, and was heißt es denn? Sich verabschieden.
To say goodbye to friends that are not good for you at all.
Yes.
Or people that are not good for you at all.
That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah. And I would say, like, for me, it's really the main message, and what Jana also said is it's really important to just listen. And I have to say, like, for me, for example, that sometimes is also hard. And I think it's really important to always, as a relative or as someone who is the one who is supposed to listen and who wants to listen, it is also okay if you don't always meet the mark exactly. And if you do give advice, which I do sometimes, for me, I still have to learn, and I think it's really important to also keep in mind it's fine to make mistakes if you learn from them. And as long as I have my sister who's always telling me, Lena, that was not so nice just now. Could you please just not do that again? I can listen, take that in, and yeah, do my best to not do it again, and really just be open and listen, and yeah, be there for the person. And as Jana really said, do what, if it's in your capability or capacity, do what they ask you to do, and not, or what is asked of you, and not just something where you think it might be the best. Just ask what might be the best, and then do that, and not something else. Yeah, so that's my learning.
Thank you. Nick, maybe you want to say some last words? I saw you something sharing in the chat.
Oh yeah, I was plug-in extra work. I just want to say, as I mentioned in the chat, it really has been an honor and a privilege to be part of this session today. As the oldest speaker with experience here, I'm a youth worker. I work with young people on the ground a lot, and to see so many people from across Europe sharing their stories, it's really interesting hearing the diversity and the experiences that we've all had, some different, some not too dissimilar, quite similar in fact. And you know, I think the work that AEGEE are doing on mental health in the last year and continuing so is amazing. And thank you for bringing us all together today. I look forward to the rest of the week, but this first session specifically about young people's experiences and sharing has been just breathtaking. Thank you, everyone, and thanks for having me be part of this as well.
Thank you. All right, then I think we can move on to the information about the workshop that's coming next.
Exciting.
So next on, we will have the workshop Better Together from EFSA. It's in the same link as the panel was, and we will allow 30 people to come in. And after that, we unfortunately have to close the workshop. So that's that. The workshop will start in 22 minutes. And we also have a little addition that if you feel like you have to talk about anything that you mentally feel with somebody, we have a platform that's called Frisse Gedachtes. Laura, if you maybe can switch to the next. Well, I will continue. Well, there is a platform called Frisse Gedachtes. I will share the link in the chat. And they offer free and anonymous counseling. So if you would like to have somebody to talk about, you can go to their website. Yeah, thank you, Liz. And you can talk anonymously with somebody. So I just wanted to share that. You can still, yes, you can still enter the workshop now. So thank you.